good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to another episode of WebPageTest Live, but it's not any particular episode. It's actually a super special one. And I'm going to basically sit down and let the two very esteemed guests to let you know what we're up to today. Scott, good afternoon. Jeena,
Hey,
good
Andre.
morning.
Hi,
And
Andre.
Hey,
um,
Jeena.
I'm going to see myself out. So everyone have a good time, and I'll be in the chat hanging out. Cheers.
All right,
Thank
thanks, Andre.
you. So good to see everybody. Welcome to
Yeah,
our
thanks for
special
joining us.
edition, WebPageTest Live. Yeah, and it's great to see how everybody's been sharing where they're from. So we've got like a really good global turnout. Pretty cool. Well, if you feel like there could be a better, comfortable time for everybody, we have another Asia Pacific comfort time zone tomorrow at 6 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Same group talking about the same thing. So if you have friends and coworkers you want to like invite to that, please do. And we're very, very, very excited to be here. So Scott, what have you been up to?
Wow, the team's been busy, Jeena.
Yeah, it has actually. Has everybody checked out webpagetest.org today?
Yeah, if you
I would say
haven't,
show of hands, but then we'd have to do like +1 and something.
yeah, go ahead and check that out. There's a little teaser on the homepage that should clue you into some of the new things.
Awesome. Yeah, we were drum rolling it in different ways for the last couple of days, and we're very excited to announce the new and enhanced web page test for everybody. Resplendent with opportunities. So, our own opinionated takes on opportunities for the test results that you run. We have experiments which give you, a no code access to be able to test things before you even want to launch and see the impact that it can have on your site's performance. And we have a whole bunch of other things that we've launched, like bulk testing, private tests, you name it, like more premium locations. So definitely encourage you to check it out today. We have a good blog post. We'll send over all these links in the end. But to be honest, the most important thing that we wanted to like actually share with you live is actually take you through some of the scenes behind with Scott and how it came to be, and some of the experiments and tests, so that you can see it live and in action.
Yeah, this is really exciting to be able to talk about it publicly now. We've been working on this for a number of months, probably since October, I think, at least. We started development work on it, but it really follows the trajectory of where a lot of performance audits and developers have been headed for a decade or more now, which is to see bottlenecks and opportunities for improvements and apply, usually manually, optimizations to their code base to see if it moves the needle. And in the process, that used to take quite a lot of work. So we wanted to make that more reliable and easier to do. And also easier to do really complex transformations so that it's even more of a power tool than you might have had as a consultant in the past.
Yeah. And Scott, I've got like some really good questions for you, but do you want to actually kick it off with like running an experiment and showing us what it looks like?
Yeah. Let me just share my screen. All right, great. Yeah, so I'm on the homepage of webpagetest.org, and with today's launch, not a lot about the homepage's functionality has changed a whole lot, except for this little teaser. You can watch a video to see some of the highlights of what has landed with what we're calling WebPageTest Pro. A lot of features that came with this new launch are not just part of Pro, but actually available to everyone for free using the site. So it's really improved our offering and feature set for everyone who already uses the tool today. But to dig into the new features that have landed, most of them happen once you reach a test result page. So you would classically run a test from this box here, and I will not make you wait while I while the test runs for a minute, I've queued up a couple test result pages so we can just look at them. But before I get to that result, I wanted to introduce this test site we made. It's called The Metric Times, and it's a pile of bad performance practices all lumped into a fake news site that we created. You can sort of consider it a unit test for running our opportunities and experiments section to basically fail every diagnostic that we throw at it, so that you can use it to test opportunities and experiments on your own. And so I ran this page through a test recently, and this is a standard test result. You can see the metric times came through here. And if you're used to using WebPageTest, a lot of this will look pretty familiar to you still, with the exception that above the metrics, when you first land, we now have a section called opportunities and experiments that's sort of teased here. You see some summaries about how the page loaded from a few different perspectives, whether it was quick, whether it was usable, whether it was resilient. And all of those categories are reviewed with our diagnostic checks that will be constantly evolving. So what you see today may be a little different than what you see in a week from now. We'll be keeping up with whatever the performance community considers to be best practice, or changing as we go, as browser features land and things like that. But for the most part, you get a little tease of how the page performed, and you can click through either here or on these to reach this new page, which is called Opportunities and Experiments. And here's where you can start to get some really detailed information about some of the bottlenecks that we found when analyzing the test result. So again, these are broken into 3 categories: quickness, usability, and resilience. And as you go through them, you can see some highlighted opportunities. If it's green, that means we ran a diagnostic and things looked pretty good, so we're giving you a pat on the back. If you see a red note here, it means we perceived what is probably a opportunity to make an improvement to one of these categories: quickness, resilience, usability. And when you get an opportunity like this, we will always offer either experiments that you can run to try to change the status of that bottleneck, maybe improve your performance, or a tip that you can't necessarily run there, but you may be able to take back to your own site and apply the change. So in most cases, we have an experiment to recommend. In this case, we noticed an opportunity for a lot of JavaScript files that are referenced from the page in a way that causes the page to delay rendering. So it's basically a blank page until all these scripts are requested and downloaded and evaluated, and then the page is shown, which is not great for user experience, so and for page speed performance. So some of these experiments could potentially improve that bottleneck and make it go away. So the first one it recommends is actually an experiment that we have enabled for anyone who runs a test on their site. So while most of these experiments are from here down are part of our WebPageTest Pro experience, you can still try out experiments on your site with this first one, defer render blocking scripts. And what that will do is for the particular assets that we identified that you would like to include in the experiment, it'll find these in your page and add a defer attribute, causing it to load in parallel and allow the page to render as it's being requested, so sooner. So if I wanted to just run this one, I would check this. And these experiments are additive. So it's useful a lot of times to run them in isolation. You might want to run one at a time. But sometimes you might want to run in combination with other experiments. Some of them make sense to be paired together. So you have that option. And as you add them, they get added to your cart down here. And you can see what's applied. These will link to the various spots in your page where you can adjust what's been applied. You can change the number of runs that your experiment will do, and then you hit go. And what that'll do is kick off two test runs, an experiment run, which applies all of the optimizations that you checked, and a control run, which goes through our experiment proxy, but doesn't apply any changes at all. And the reason we do that is we want a fair comparison between the original site and the one that has optimizations applied.
I guess, Scott, this is the one fake news site that we will accept.
That's right. So if I were to click go and run an experiment, let's just say I only checked defer render blocking scripts. I won't make you wait, but you would land at a result page like this, which starts with a little head-to-head video rendering speed comparison of your experiment run versus your control run. And in this case, actually the result I'm looking at, let me actually back up. Sorry about that. I thought I had a metric times one. Okay, well, either way, this is a result from an experiment I ran on Google Flights. And you can see the head-to-head here and metric differences that were either better or slower, which are both useful to know. If you were to run an optimization on a page, typically that would sink a bit of your time just to apply the test in a way that you could make a fair comparison, which usually would take a fair amount of work. And it's useful to know if it's worth doing that work in production or not. An experiment that ends up slower is useful to know as well. So you would find that out here. You can see if it's faster, it'll be red if it was slower, comparing the experiment to the control. I said that I was saying that I skipped to a different experiment run here for a different site. I guess it's a little backwards, but I'll go back and say that that was this site. And earlier yesterday, this is Google's flights site, and they have this this LCP image, this banner image up here. And in a test result, I was seeing that the LCP time was 3 seconds, and this was on a 3G fast connection. So, a slower connection for today's standards on a cell phone, on a Android device. LCP is a little high. So if I went to the opportunities page, I could come down to the section where it's talking about largest contentful paint. It identified that it was high. Here's that image. And it gives me a couple of experiments that I could potentially try to make that image load sooner. So in this case, there are two different experiments that you could try. One is to preload the image. So that would drop a link of a rel with preload attribute and preload the image at a high priority. The second one adds an attribute to the image itself to tell the browser to fetch it at a high priority. And that's the one that I actually ran to arrive at that test result that we were just seeing here. Now, when you look at an experiment result, there's this little menu that tells you which experiments were applied. And that can give you some information about how to implement the change in your own code base if you decide that it's something that you want to pursue. So from here, you can click experiment more. That'll take you right back to the opportunities and experiments page where you can change up what's in your cart, so to speak, and run more experiments. So I think that covers kind of the flow overall. Jeena, did I have one more minute or two to talk about?
We have a really good question. Can you make your own experiment, or am I jumping too far ahead?
That was just I was about to cover that. All right, perfect. Yeah, so if you scroll down past all of these recommendations, so all of this section up here is about bottlenecks that we discovered and experiments that we would recommend you try. So they're very prescribed in that way. Down towards the bottom, after you get past the accessibility section, the resilience section, the part that identifies how much of the page was generated on the client side, the JavaScript. That's a great one. You get to this section at the bottom called Create Experiments. Now, this is kind of the Power Tools section. If you're a performance consultant, if you do audits, you'll probably find this section to be pretty useful. It pretty much opens up all of the experiments that we offer up top, but in a way that's very freeform. So we start with a few that are ways to add arbitrary HTML to your page. So you can insert something at the start of the head, the end of the head tag, or at the end of the body. Common places that you might say include a script tag, for example. So if you were, as one use case, maybe on a marketing team and you wanted to add a chatbot to your site, and you wanted to know the performance impact of adding that script before you did it on the live site, then maybe you would add it to the end of your head here, and you could just add it right here. I would type it out, and it'll add this arbitrary HTML to the end of the head, referencing that tag, and you can see in your test result how it impacted your performance and other metrics that we measure. Other create experiments we offer are finding and replacing text. This one's as useful as you want it to be. It runs right against the HTML source, so you can find and swap a headline. That wouldn't really do a whole lot to your performance result, but you could change, sections of HTML, swap them out with another. It even works with regular expressions. And then further down, we have all of the ones that you see recommended up top in a way that you can run yourself. So if I wanted to defer some JavaScript files that I know are in the page, but maybe our tool didn't recommend up top, I could just add this to my experiment and identify one or more scripts that I know are in the page, and it will find those script tags with those source attributes, add a defer attribute to them. So that's pretty much how that section works. There are quite a lot down here.
A lot of options, Scott. I remember we're not supposed to really have favorites, but I remember when we were discussing how to make it available and how this was one of my favorite sections, just because there's so much you can test before you even want. A lot of conversations that you have with folks where, hey, I don't have control over my page. I have all these tags that are all generating all kinds of performance issues. And now if you turn that question around, I'm going to use your tag and see how it really improves my performance. Does it or not?
Exactly.
And then put in the tag. That is quite a game changer. So very excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of advantages to using a tool like this over, I was a consultant for 15 years, and we would do a lot of these audits, and it would involve in some way or another changing a site, sometimes even live, to see if certain changes would be better for the user experience. And that was always kind of a fragile process to do without a tool like this that could apply it in a safe way that wasn't actually impacting the live site. Yeah, so it's pretty exciting.
We've got some really good questions, and we'll actually get back if we're not able to, because this is a very short live edition. So we've made a note of all the questions. If we've not gotten back, we will get back. Some of the things that I can probably take are, yes, if you've been a subscriber of WepPageTest with the API platform, you are auto-enrolled into Pro. And so you should be able to access all the premium features, including experiments, bulk testing, private tests, all of that right now, starting today. So that's great. We've not separated that out. So that's great. And so take it for a spin. And yes, data wins in so many ways. If you can try something in a safe, like Scott mentioned, in a very safe environment, if you're able to test what works and doesn't, that's great in terms of buy-in. That's great in terms of just learning over time as well. So we're very excited to see what everybody comes up with. And we have some more activities and things lined up in the next few weeks. So definitely stay tuned. Are there any closing thoughts, Scott? If you had to pick something that could game change your performance testing, what would you pick?
Yeah, well, I guess, in the process of building this tool, we've run it against our own site quite a few times, but I have not applied any of the changes that it recommended yet. So I think that's first on our list.
Are you saying the metric times can't be improved?
Oh, that one certainly can. Yeah. But I think what's nice about the way the opportunities are surfaced is that we're purposely not recommending things as a sort of grade, but more of a feedback that there's usually some opportunity to make things better, right? So things look good, but you might want to try this or that. So it's pretty rare to run a site through that that has nothing that can be changed a little bit, or at least recommended to try. So I think it's fun. I just like to run sites through it, see what it recommends.
So that's what you do when you have time, when you're not working, you're running tests.
Yeah. Video games aren't really for me. I just do this.
Awesome. Okay, great. We're gonna just for, I guess, some resources to keep in mind. Everything's actually on webpagetest.org. So we have our links to the blog, the events, so any upcoming events. We've got another live session, same as this, with our Asia Pacific audience tomorrow. So it's at 6 p.m. IST. I think it's 12, I'm not going to butcher it, 6 p.m. IST and a corresponding time zone in UTC and CEST. And then we've got our usual WebPageTest live audit session. So there's one that's happening tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. And there will be one next week again at an earlier time slot to accommodate for Asia. So we've got a few live audits coming in. You might actually see some familiar faces, not just from the Catchpoint WebPageTest team, but also from others in the industry. So definitely stay tuned and join us and take WebPageTest out for a test run.
Yeah. Thanks for listening in.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Scott.
All right. Thanks, Jeena.
See you.